Hi everyone, Peter here from Movement and Performance, and in this presentation we're going to cover the in-season training for team sport athletes. So firstly, we need to understand where in the yearly plan the in-season is, and essentially it's following the off-season and pre-season, and it's basically the entire competitive period of the year. So this can last between 4 and 8 months depending on the sport and depending on your particular season. So this yearly plan was created in another video as an example called Creating a Periodized Annual Training Plan for Team Sport Athletes, which you can check out. And that's where I'll go through the design of this entire training plan and the rationale behind everything. And if you want to check out off-season or pre-season training, check out how to train in the off-season or pre-season for team sport athletes. There are other videos again on this YouTube channel. So the objectives of training in the in-season from a strength and conditioning perspective is to maintain our fitness basically. And also a big part of the in-season is to be ready for the next game. And then when we have important games or we might have finals, we need to reduce fatigue so that we're even fresher for those particular games. And basically when we talk about maintaining fitness, it may not be that simple, but we'll get into that further in the presentation. So the exercises we choose during the in-season phase are basically going to be, in my personal opinion, are going to be actually quite general in nature. And the reason that I think this should be the case is that sport training itself is going to be the priority, and that's going to cover the most specific physical training that the athletes can undergo. So for the athletes to maintain these general qualities that they've built or even build on these throughout the season is going to mean that the transfer will come simply from the training that they're doing. Otherwise, if we're getting too specific with our training, with our strength and conditioning training, it will look too similar to the sport training itself, and we're not actually creating much of a stimulus to adapt. So with our speed type training, it's probably going to be best to stick with our more general acceleration and max velocity type work. And this can be sort of cycled throughout the in-season based on our opponents and how much training time we have. So acceleration is probably going to be the most general type of training, followed by max velocity, and then we could even include some change of direction type training if we really need to be sharp for a certain game or a certain period of the in-season. When we move on to power type training, we want probably both slow and fast power type training. We might start with more slow early in the in-season and then transition more to fast type power training. Or we might just put it in little blocks where we may have some weaker type opponents. So we might do more of a slow power type training block and then more fast type power training where we need to be a little bit more peaked and a little bit more fresh for a certain game. And the important part here is that whatever power sort of method we're going to use, we probably want low joint loading because the sport training itself and the competitive games are probably going to be beating up our athletes quite a bit. So probably throws, the Olympic lifts, and things with sort of lower eccentric loading are probably going to be the most beneficial at this part during the in-season. However, it's not to say that we can't use any plyometrics, but they should probably be used when only for short periods of time when we need to be peaked, maybe an important game or for finals. For strength training, we probably again want to stick with the more general and maximal strength type resistance training. This is again because the specific strength that is required for the sport is probably just simply going to be done through the sport training itself. So if we can maintain these general and maximal strength qualities, we can probably see not much of a reduction in performance. In terms of our conditioning, it's probably the most difficult one to actually prescribe because the sport training itself, depending on how much say the coach has, or if it's an athlete by themselves, what they're doing with the club, they might be getting enough conditioning in the season to actually not need any additional work. So the sport practice will provide enough conditioning usually for the athletes. However, sometimes if athletes don't get a lot of game time or no game time, we might need some top-up work. So then we can do some sport-specific conditioning like short interval or repeat sprint type conditioning, just to make sure we're maintaining that aerobic condition throughout the in-season. And so moving on to our volumes and intensities of the in-season, this is where it's important not to simply try to maintain the entire season, because if we drop our volume and we just have high intensity the whole time, we can probably have a risk of detraining just because the season is so long. So we have to pick and choose where we really want to be peaked and where we can afford to throw in a little bit more volume to the athlete. Otherwise, we'll probably have the risk of detraining. And then the intensity should probably gradually rise throughout the in-season, and should peak maybe towards the end or for important games coming up. Maybe an idea that could be structured for the in-season is to have a small volume accumulation phase at the start, so that we just have our athletes at least be able to tolerate some volume before then gradually dropping it throughout the season, so that we're really peaked with this high intensity and lower volume at specific times, because we're unable to actually hold a peak for that long of the in-season. That's it for this presentation. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this informative content, you can check out Movement and Performance on Facebook and Instagram, and you can subscribe on YouTube for updates on future videos. So on Facebook and Instagram, you'll find the latest research summarized into these easy to read infographics, which is basically makes the latest research understandable and easy to read, so that you can stay up to date with the latest research in sport performance training. So thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully you got something out of it.